Over the past few years, ScaleMate has helped dozens of B2B SaaS startups scale from seed through to Series A and far beyond. Companies like Coworker AI, Cyber Sierra, even CrediLink, they're spanning across AI businesses, cybersecurity businesses, and fintech. You name it, we've done it all. Today, I'm going to teach you every single thing I know about B2B SaaS sales and how to be successful in today's digital and virtual environment. These are not just theoretical strategies, these are real battle-tested frameworks that generate real results. So let's get into it. Okay, so part one, the virtual reality. The virtual reality of selling. So back in the day, we used to have to go to people's offices and meet people in person, shake their hand, look them in the eye. You get, a whole lot of interpersonal things that happen when you're actually face to face. That doesn't really exist anymore, particularly in America. It's a big country. Everyone lives throughout the country. So people are in Ohio, they're in LA, they're in San Francisco, they're in Miami. It doesn't feasibly make sense to have an initial discovery call and, go to their office and fly there and spend all that money. Down the file, once you've got POCs being discussed and negotiating all that sort of stuff, fair enough, that's fine. It depends on the ticket size as well. If you're selling a $30,000 subscription, $50,000, $100,000, it makes sense to make that investment. If it's a $2,000 subscription for a year, probably doesn't make too much sense to travel around, and you probably won't need to anyway to close the deal. So, very different environment. Everyone's doing this over Zoom. The challenge is building a relationship over Zoom is pretty tough. So there's little strategies you have to implement to be able to build that relationship, prove value, all the standard stuff. So first thing I see founders do wrong, having back-to-back meetings, like legitimately half an hour blocks, actually really hurts your velocity and throughput with sales. What do I mean? So this happens all the time. You do 5 minutes intro, 15 minutes discovery, conversation back and forth, you do a little pitch, and then it's time to book next steps at the end of that call. Some prospects are going to ask a million questions, and that 15, 20 minutes time frame that you have to do discovery, ask questions, pitch, etc., leaks over into the final 2 minutes of a call, the final 1 minute of a call. You have 30 seconds at the end of the call, and they don't book next steps. They don't set expectations clearly for how things are going to move forward because they don't have time. They have to run to another call. So, I have to hop, I've got a hard stop, all this stuff. It actually hurts your chances. One little tactical thing that I advise founders on, if it's possible, is build into your booking link or your calendar rules that you cannot book a call without a 15-minute gap. That 15-minute gap saves so many next steps in booking another call that it's only a positive, even though you might be waiting around a little bit in between meetings every now and then. That's fine. On the relationship side, another thing I see founders really struggle with is building a relationship over Zoom, not as easy, right, as in person and actually meeting someone. So for that first call, how do you do that? The chit chat part, the small talk is just like harder than it would be if you were face to face. Having a story, having something that happened this week, an event that's coming up, like something to break the ice, become human is super important, and even more so in the digital environment. Attention spans, not as good as they once were, especially when there's a distraction in front of you that you're looking at. Slack messages, emails, everything that's popping up in front of the prospect, they could be working while you're speaking to them, which is obviously not good. They're not going to retain information. They're not going to remember who you are. They're not going to remember the product, the value, etc., etc. So being very mindful of that, keeping people engaged, hand gestures, that's kind of why I do all this all the time to keep you engaged, is a lot more important. Now, what are the pluses of virtual selling? Easier to record calls. So you can go back, you can visit them, especially when you're building out a sales team. You got AEs, you need to record calls, go over them, point out the problems, the areas of improvement, all that sort of stuff. Prospects are more comfortable in their own environment. They don't like to meet new people, they don't like to network, etc. Especially if you're selling into like a technical realm, if you're selling to engineers, if you're selling to cybersecurity people, they're typically not as social people. It's just the way it is. So they may be more comfortable over Zoom. You're actually like meeting them where they are, where they want to be. So that's a plus. And then the virtual environment is cheaper and faster and more efficient. So if you can master it, it is definitely a plus to sell virtually. You can scale it. You don't have to be in a physical location. You can sell around the world. It's faster. You can do 4 meetings in the time that you would have done 1 historically. So it is getting better. It is getting easier, especially if you know these little tricks. So let's talk about the intro call. This is a first call with a prospect. You've never met them before. They may have looked through a website, could be inbound, could be outbound, could be LinkedIn, cold call, whatever it is. You have successfully booked a meeting with a prospect who fits your ICP. Fantastic. What is the first step of an intro call? I'm a big believer in small talk, right? I have things that are planned. Maybe something happened over the weekend. Maybe there's an event, a large event in the news or whatever it is, something to do with them. You saw a post, just something that like makes you a freaking human. You have to make some level of connection over Zoom, and it's not easy. So just something like 4th of July was coming up. What are you doing for 4th of July? Something that simple is just better. I can't tell you, I buy a lot of software, right? How many salespeople get on a call and just like go straight into it? And it's like, it's almost just a pleasantry. It's just say hello, get to know the person a little bit. It's not the end. It's not going to waste that much time, right? Second, intro the biz. So again, this kind of depends on the context. Like I typically focus on ACVs or my clients that are, 30K plus, like mid-market enterprise type thing. Giving a little bit of background on the business, people actually like that, especially in America where it's like, startups are such an interesting thing and such a prevalent thing. A little bit on the business, a little bit on the product. Make sure you've got an elevator pitch here, like something that captures attention, you think is going to resonate with the majority of your ICP, because then when you go into the next step, which is like on the discovery side, they at least have a framework of, well, this is the product that they have. This is the stage they're at. I'm going to answer my questions relative to that context. If you don't do that and just say, hey, why did you join the call? Hey, I'm going to start asking you a million questions. They're like, what the hell do you guys do? They have not researched you to the same level that you have researched them. You've gone into the call, you've looked at their website, you've looked at their LinkedIn, you've looked at their last post, you've looked at who they're hiring, you've looked at all this stuff, right? You have a broad swath of context on this prospect. They have not done the same in reverse. They may have looked at the website 2 weeks ago when they booked a call and now they've forgotten. So intro the business, it's going to set up the entire call. That leads me to the next step, which is, why did you join? Why did you join the call? Now that they have a little bit of context on the product, the business, like the space you're in, who you sell to, maybe a quick success story, whatever's in that elevator pitch, now they can say, well, I joined the call because XYZ. We have this initiative. For example, I'm working with a few AI companies right now. Everyone says we're looking into AI. We're in discovery mode of AI. That opens up the conversation quite a lot. Depending on what they say, you're going to have a conversation, but eventually you get into discovery. Now, this is a massive conversation in itself. You have to ask the right questions. Obviously, there's some basic things you should know pre-call, like an example, how many employees roughly do they have? You should know that. You shouldn't ask that. You can confirm it. Then there's the challenge-based questions of, hey, do you experience this pain? Do you see this as an opportunity? Is this on your product roadmap? That sort of stuff. Depending on, again, the ACV and the complexity of the sale, the complexity of the tech and the space, you might want to go into quantifying pain. So, all right, you've got X number of employees spending roughly this much time. If we can increase efficiency by X, then here's your return on investment, right? That sort of stuff. Now, I've changed my tune over the years on how best to run discovery. I think back in the day, it was like discovery, tick off all your questions, pitch, and then next steps, right? I think that's changed. The best founders that I see and the most successful founders that I see are very conversational in their discovery process. It's like you're doing discovery and finding out information without the prospect feeling like you're doing discovery, right? It's like a sneak attack. They are able to ask questions, respond, give a tangential answer to, oh yeah, that's the same as this customer because of this, this, and this. By the way, we use this internally because of this reason. Here's how I use this every day, like that sort of stuff. Rather than, hey, do you experience this pain? Okay, check. How big's the pain? Okay, check. Like, it's robotic, right? Again, it comes back to being human. That's like a underlying principle throughout this stuff. But the best founders are conversational. They can go on tangents. And this is the real point of difference with founder-led sales versus hiring an AE. Founder-led sales, you have all the context of the business, the space, the product, the roadmap, the support, SLA. You've got everything, right? You can talk to a million different things versus an AE doesn't have that level of detail about the product and about the business and about the space. So at the beginning, when you're crafting messaging and crafting stories and crafting discovery process, you need to be the one involved. That's why founder-led sales is so important, because you just have 10x more context than any salesperson ever will. So very important. Try to insert during discovery call like mini pitches, I call them. As soon as someone identifies pain or an opportunity, like maybe a quick story, maybe a little here's how we use it. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, a lot of our customers do that because of XYZ, whatever the case may be. Very conversational, I think, is the move. It's tough to train that. That's what you hire for. Very difficult to train that. And very difficult to scale at the beginning this level of detail without training and documentation and stuff. All right, so you run your discovery process, you've mini pitched, you've introduced yourself, you've had a good conversation. This is the most important part, particularly in the digital virtual environment, right? Is next steps. This is super, super important. So I do not like to get off a call without something booked on a calendar. That is just like number one minimum rule. If you're selling something over 10K a year, so starting to get into the 15, 20, 30, 50, you're probably going to need another call to demo and pitch. I wouldn't necessarily demo or present on the first call. It feels not tailored to the prospect, right? It's probably not a good idea. You'll probably shoot yourself in the foot. The prospect will gloss over and not listen. So if you're over 10K, book another call. If you're under 10K, you might be able to get away with a demo, a pitch, or whatever it is, and actually sign them up on that call. Just depends on the nature of the business. As a next step, it's book the call, make sure they've got it, make sure any other stakeholders are involved in that. They can invite people. If they say no to booking another call, you need to have a read on that. You need to understand how the conversation's gone so far. They may not be interested and it's a disqualification. That's fine. If we've had a great chat, there's clearly something here, they're an obvious fit, ask again. The amount of times that all you need to do is ask twice and now you have another meeting on the calendar is like insane. You just ask twice. If they reject it, the best way to overcome it is to say, I'll book it on your calendar for I'll shoot in the dark sometime next week. If it doesn't work, just suggest another call, and they always say yes to that. It's super low risk. You just suggest another time, perfect, and it's on my time, Mr. Prospect, right? Very simple. During discussing next steps, prep them and prime them for the next call. So if it's a demo call, great. We'll go through your challenges that we spoke about last time, refresh everyone's memory, then we'll get into the demo. We'll show you these exact use cases to make sure we hit the nail on the head. If it's a POC call, you want to explain the POC process at a high level, so at least they're primed going into that next call. I always like to, maybe on the first call, maybe on the second, depends on the scenario, but explain the buying process. Because honestly, it's kind of shocking. Like if you're at a company for 6 months and you're the chief operating officer, you're the CPO, whatever, you may have only procured one or two software items, right? Depends on where you've come in and what business you're in, but they don't necessarily know the buying process. They have a budget, they have a procurement team, but they don't know the people. They don't know how to push it through. They don't know who they need to get approval from every single time. They don't know if it comes out of my budget or this person's budget, right? It's complicated. So explaining what we need from our side is actually very, very important, and it should enable the process faster. Put it that way. I think that's quite overlooked sometimes. Now let's talk about the demo call. So you've had the intro with the prospect where you've understood challenges, potential opportunity areas, all that stuff, right? Now it's time to demo. The best way that I've seen to continually run discovery, learn more about the prospect, their buying behavior, all that stuff, is to do a quick intro at the beginning. I like to reiterate the business, the product, the challenges you've solved for, all that stuff, because this person may have been on 6 calls that day. It's been a week between calls or 2 weeks. They've forgotten stuff. Always reiterate a little bit more about the business and the product. Little intro. Next is a reiteration of their challenges, their opportunity areas, the things that you discussed with them, and that's why they're on this call today. You reiterate, you say, have I missed anything? Any use cases that we missed? Any challenges that I missed? Did I forget about the whole business initiative? Whatever it is. That then opens them up quite a lot. It's shown that you've listened and you're really trying to, help them out and put all the pieces together. So they will open up at this point, which is great. If there's anyone else on the call, get their perspective too. Make them feel involved. Are they the buyer? Are they a user? Are they a technical person? Whatever it is. They will tell you about their challenges as well. They have that context because you did the intro at the start, which is useful. And now you can ask a few more questions. Here, I also like to prime the buying process. So who's the ultimate buyer? Have you had chats internally? What's the process from here like for you guys? Like all this sort of stuff right at the beginning. Next is the actual demo. So I am a big proponent of doing the whole demo. I know a lot of people say like only show the relevant use cases, and I think that's kind of bullshit. I think you can do both. So let's say there's a top use case, top problem, top whatever, right? Top opportunity area. You can show that first. That's the thing that's going to hook them, right? You're going to get their attention. This is the thing we're solving for. Once that's done, they've asked a million questions. You've shown it, demonstrated it, fine. Next, show all the other stuff. The other stuff that they're not considering, that you didn't get a chance to talk about on the first call. The feature that's interesting for other customers similar to them. Whatever it is, they should see the whole product, because the amount of times I've been on a call where the first use case isn't necessarily that interesting, and then they see something else and they're like, oh, hang on, what's this? And then they start asking questions. 100% show the whole thing. Particularly in startups, they're by nature innovative. They're trying to solve an old problem in a new way. They're trying to solve a new problem, new opportunity, whatever. Customers and prospects, they don't necessarily know what they don't know. You need to show them. You need to prime them. You need to explain things, right? They need to get the wheels turning and the brain thinking, because you're more invested in your market, your industry, your product than they are. So they don't necessarily know it. This is particularly true of startups. The next part is, again, depending on the ACV you're selling at, could be 30K, 50K, whatever, there's probably going to be another call, and the buying process isn't straightforward. It needs to go through procurement, InfoSec review, all this stuff. You need to have a hook to get them on another call. Again, depending on the complexity of your sale, you could be getting the product people on, another team, another person, the budget holder, the technical people who are going to evaluate the product, whatever it might be. If your stages are at least somewhat defined, your sales stages, let's say you're going into a POC. Well, the next call is a POC planning call. We'll take you through the exact process. If you're doing an ROI presentation, the next call, ROI presentation. We'll take you through the numbers, right? You need to have that somewhat defined to be able to hook them on another call and book the next steps so people don't ghost. Now, a very important part of the whole overall B2B process is the B2B buying journey, right? So depending on who you're selling to, this could be a very complicated process. And funnily enough, not everyone knows the process. Even the person who's buying the product can be pretty extensive, lots of contract reviews, lawyers, all this stuff, right? It gets pretty complicated. Generally speaking, there's a few key players in this. The champion. Now, this could be the person who you originally spoke with. This could be someone who's evangelizing and promoting your product within the business to everyone else. It could solve their problem. They could just love technology. Like that happens quite a lot, actually, where they just like it. It could be solving their problem, could be solving a colleague's problem. But ultimately, there's some reason why they're your champion. They are the internal voice. You want to get close to this person. You want to get their phone number. You want to get them on a Slack channel. You want to do all this stuff, right? They're going to help you significantly. And usually they either have the personality to push things or they don't. Once you've seen it a few times, it's pretty obvious when you've got a good champion. Next is, I'm just going to do DM, but the decision maker. Decision maker is the person who actually makes the final call. The champion is going to influence the decision maker to make the final call. Depending on the process, the relationship they have internally, the decision maker might be super involved in the process. They might get on a couple calls and actually evaluate the product. They want to demo all that stuff. So the decision maker has the authority that they own the budget. Yes, the CFO has to sign off and whatever, but like they typically care about return on investment because they're the ones spending the money. They don't want to waste money, any risk that's involved. They are the people who, they need to see the business case, right? The influencer, the champion, they don't really need to see the business case. They want to know the product works. So getting that right is again a challenge. Don't rush it. Sometimes people rush that and they screw it up. Next, the technical evaluator. So depending again on the product, you may not have this. This isn't in every sales process, but someone who's going to technically validate the product. This could be the point of contact for the POC. So you're doing a trial and they need to technically go through the use cases. This person could be the same person as the champion as well. Just depends. You're selling a complicated product, there could be 3 people of these, right? Just depends. Then there are the end users. I love my handwriting. These are the people who are logging in and using it day to day. Super important most of the time I don't think there's an exception here. End users, you should be getting feedback during trial or during proof of concept. They are going to be super important qualitatively to push the POC forward into a contract, right? If they say, I like and use the product, maybe you don't have to define what like means or use means, but they're using it, they like it, it adds efficiency, great. They are the adopters and they become champions of your product inadvertently through a trial process. Your job as a salesperson is to identify these people and then play accordingly. You may need to set up separate meetings, you may need to pitch differently, you may need to leverage the champion to get to the decision maker. Again, all not easy. There are a couple of things you can do there. Getting a phone number, for example, of the champion is very important. The one secret weapon you do have, if you can tie all of this back, all of the benefits to an end user, the benefits to a champion, the technical value, all this stuff, if you can tie it back to a company initiative, and there's already a company initiative in place, you're probably not going to create one. That's very tough. Then you can sell to the decision maker, which is the ultimate goal. Bit of a secret weapon. It's something that you should ask during a discovery process. Is there a company initiative for this? Is the CEO telling you to go figure this out? Or are you just going rogue and talking to a salesperson over a phone call? So identifying those people, super important. You play each game differently, I guess, but ultimately you need to get to the decision maker. So the final thing I'd like to say is the founder's advantage. So the founder should always be running sales up until at least kind of the first $1 million in ARR. You're going to learn so much from that. Just the words that you say, the little phrases, the analogies, all of that learning that you do at the beginning is going to translate to your account executives in the future. They will become, somewhat replicas of what you say because they're going to listen to calls during onboarding. They're going to watch you on calls during onboarding. And those little things that you say do become the parlance of the organization and particularly the sales organization. So very important. You have vision, you have the product knowledge, you'll have the industry knowledge, you'll have the business knowledge. You should be the best salesperson in your business by far, just by the nature of your position. If you also have sales skills, great. If you don't, you should still be the best salesperson of the company. Then you'll hire AEs and they'll replicate what they want. They'll find what works. You'll figure it out together. You'll delegate sales. You'll become, again, an authoritative figure when we go into a demo and they haven't met the founder before and the AE can introduce the founder to the prospect. So not easy. This stuff isn't easy. If you found this valuable, you can go to our website. You can book a call directly with me and we can discuss your sales process in a little bit more detail.